into the abyss, why the darkest souls were always the closest to God. They said demons couldn't be healed, that darkness was final, that once something crossed over into shadow, it was lost forever. But what if they were wrong? What if everything we've been taught about darkness was just fear wearing the mask of wisdom? What if the ones we've called cursed, broken, or damned were actually sacred? What if they were not here to be saved by the light, but to become it? I've seen it. I've lived it. And if you're listening right now, chances are you've lived it too. You've seen the inside of your own hell, and somehow you're still standing. That's not weakness. That's divinity. We don't talk about what it's like to carry demons, real ones, emotional, ancestral, energetic. The kind that don't just haunt you, they live in you. They mimic your voice. They make you sabotage your own blessings. They whisper lies so convincingly you think they're your thoughts. And when you try to speak about it, people call you crazy, or worse, evil. But the dark chosen ones, we know different. We don't flinch at demons. We sit with them. We hold them. We ask them what they need. And over time, we realize something no one ever told us. Demons are not here to destroy you. They're here to deliver you. I want you to ask yourself something right now. What if your darkness was never a mistake? What if the trauma, the rage, the addiction, the isolation, what if those were not punishments, but portals? What if you were sent into the shadow not to die, but to retrieve something the world forgot? Because here's the truth they don't want you to know. Only those who've walked with demons can teach others how to be free. Only the dark chosen ones can see the blueprint of pain and rewrite it with purpose. That's why you were sent there. Not as a victim, not as a lost soul, but as a healer in disguise. When I say dark chosen ones, I'm talking about the ones who were born into chaos, the black sheep, the scapegoats, the ones whose childhoods were battlegrounds, the ones who were touched by trauma before they could even speak. These are the people the world often discards, fearing their intensity, misunderstanding their silence. But what the world misses is this: those who were forced to survive hell become fluent in transformation. They become alchemists. They become warriors of light cloaked in shadows. And when they rise, they don't just heal themselves, they rewrite the rules of reality. I've seen people carry demons that would have crushed others, addictions passed down for generations, violence encoded in their blood, shame so deep it strangled their voice for decades. But when they finally turned inward, when they stopped fighting the demon and started listening, they discovered the truth. Demons are just unhealed pain that's been pushed too far. They don't need to be exorcised. They need to be integrated. They need to be seen. And the dark chosen ones are the only ones brave enough to do that work, to sit with what others run from, to love what others fear. You might be wondering, but how can a demon be healed? And my answer is this: not through fear, not through punishment, through presence, but through understanding, through radical acceptance, the same way we heal a wounded child. Because that's what most demons are: wounded inner children who were never held. And who better to hold them than someone who's been there, someone who is there. That's why the dark chosen ones are not cursed. They're qualified. They're trained in the underworld. And when they finally awaken to who they are, they become unstoppable. So here's the question that could change everything for you. What if the parts of you you've been hiding are the very parts you were meant to heal the world with? What if your pain is your power in disguise? What if your demons are just waiting for you to stop running and start listening? Because once you realize that, you stop fearing the dark. You start becoming the light that was missing. And that's when the healing begins, not just for you, but for every soul still trapped in silence, waiting for someone like you to show them it's possible to come back from the fire. And not just come back, but rise from it. When you become the light that heals the darkness. It's strange, isn't it? How the world teaches us to run from darkness, to fear it, to suppress it. But when you've lived in it long enough, you start to see something everyone else has missed. You realize that darkness isn't the opposite of light, it's the womb of light. It's the place where light is born. And when you finally stop trying to escape it, something miraculous happens. You become the light. Not the kind that blinds or pretends, but the kind that heals. The kind that knows how to sit in the shadows with someone and not flinch. That's the light of the dark chosen ones. It's not performative. It's not perfect. It's powerful. People think healing demons means banishing them. But that's not how it works. You don't cast out your inner rage. You don't chain up your grief. You don't silence your shame. You meet them. You sit with them like old friends. You listen. You ask, "What are you trying to protect in me?" And slowly, layer by layer, they start to unravel. They soften. They show you their original form, pain. That's all demons really are. Pain that hardened. Pain that wasn't allowed to speak. Pain that got twisted into survival. And when the dark chosen ones begin to recognize that, they stop trying to fight their shadows and start becoming their guardians. I want to ask you something deep, something you may have never been asked before. What if your anger is holy? What if your depression is sacred? What if your anxiety is just your nervous system screaming for the truth? We've been taught to label these things as disorders, but what if they're actually sacred signals? Invitations to go deeper, not to medicate everything into silence, but to decode it and to listen. Because the dark chosen ones don't numb their emotions, they read them. They use them the way mystics use dreams, as messages, as maps, as mirrors. And here's where it gets really powerful. When you stop being afraid of your own demons, you stop being afraid of anyone else's. That's when the dark chosen ones become true healers. Not therapists or gurus or saviors, but witnesses. Sacred witnesses. People who can sit across from another soul in agony and hold space without judgment. Without trying to fix. Without trying to run, just being. Do you know how rare that is? In a world that panics at discomfort, the dark chosen ones become sanctuaries, places where people can unravel and not be abandoned. That is healing. That is holy. And this is why the world needs us now more than ever. Because the system is collapsing. The illusion is falling apart. People are waking up in droves, realizing that what they've been chasing, money, status, image, was never going to fill the hole inside. That hole. It's the sacred space where the soul is meant to live. And the only people who know how to guide others back to it are the ones who've been there. The ones who've sat in that emptiness and learned how to breathe inside it. The dark chosen ones don't offer quick fixes. They offer remembrance. They remind us how to feel again. But here's the catch. The healing isn't glamorous. It's not viral. It's messy. It's raw. It's crying on the floor at 3 a.m. It's shaking through a panic attack and hearing your inner child say, "Please don't leave me." It's reliving the trauma you swore you buried. That's why most people avoid it. That's why most people label the dark chosen ones as too intense or too much. Because they're mirrors. And mirrors don't lie. The question is, are you brave enough to look? Are you willing to look at yourself the way the dark chosen ones do, completely, honestly, lovingly? Because when you do, something shifts. You stop seeing your demons as enemies. You start seeing them as messengers. You realize that every shadow you carry is a piece of your soul trying to come home. And when you welcome them back, you don't just heal, you transform. You become something the world has never seen before, a human being who is fully alive, fully feeling, fully awake. That's not just healing. That's revolution. And it starts with one courageous choice: to sit with yourself, to feel what you've been avoiding, to love what you've been ashamed of. That's how demons are healed, not by force, but by presence. And only the dark chosen ones are brave enough to do it. The return of the forbidden ones. Why healing darkness is humanity's final test. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the question changes. It's no longer, how do I escape the darkness? But what am I meant to become because of it? That's the turning point. That's the moment the dark chosen ones stop trying to be saved by the light and begin embodying it. And when that shift happens, reality itself begins to bend. These are the ones who return from the underworld, not broken, but reborn. They don't just survive the darkness, they redeem it. They don't just walk out of hell, they carry others out with them. And that is the final test of humanity. Can we honor the ones we once feared? Can we finally recognize that the healing of darkness is the path to wholeness? We've spent centuries building religions, philosophies, and entire civilizations on the idea that darkness must be destroyed. But what if that paradigm is the real sickness? What if the war on darkness has only made it stronger? Think about it. The more we suppress, the more we shame, the more we exile the shadow, the more it festers. The more it morphs into violence, addiction, corruption, and despair. And yet we keep pretending the solution is more force, more control, more light. But light without shadow is illusion. It's flat, it's empty, it's performative. Real light is born from integration. It comes from embracing the full spectrum of existence, not just the parts that are easy to look at. You, listening to this right now, you felt it. The pull, the knowing. The ache in your bones that tells you there's something sacred about your suffering. You've looked at your past and wondered why it had to be so heavy, so brutal, so relentless. And maybe, just maybe, you've started to realize it was an initiation, not a punishment, not a curse, but a calling, a preparation. You were being shaped by the darkness because one day you'd need to speak its language, not to glorify it, but to translate it into healing. And now that day has come. The world is starving for what only you can give, the wisdom forged in the fire. But here's what no one tells you. When you rise, you will be misunderstood. When you speak, you will be doubted. When you show others that demons can be healed, they will project their fears onto you. Because you challenge the entire foundation of their belief system. You threaten the illusion that some people are beyond redemption. You remind them of the parts of themselves they still haven't faced. And so they'll call you dangerous. They'll call you delusional. But deep down, they'll feel something shift. Because your presence is proof. You're living evidence that healing is possible in the very places everyone else abandoned. And that's why you must keep going. Not because you owe the world anything, but because you are the world remembering itself. Every time you transmute a demon into wisdom, you heal a piece of the collective. Every time you forgive the unforgivable in yourself, you open a door for someone else to do the same. This work is bigger than you. It's ancient. It's cosmic. You're not just healing your lineage. You're healing the archetype of the outcast, the fallen, the forbidden one. And when enough of us do this, when enough dark chosen ones return from exile with hearts wide open, humanity itself will shift. Not through war, not through revolution, but through remembrance. So I ask you, are you willing to become what the world told you you couldn't be? Are you willing to carry your scars as sacred symbols? Are you willing to stop hiding your pain and start using it as medicine? Because we don't need more perfect people pretending to be enlightened. We need real people who have walked through the fire and are willing to say, "This is what I found on the other side." We need the ones who don't flinch at suffering. The ones who can hold rage and tenderness in the same breath. The ones who forgive themselves so completely that others feel safe to begin their own healing. That's who the dark chosen ones are. And if you're still listening, you're one of us. And maybe that's why you were drawn to this message, not by accident, not by luck, but by soul recognition. You didn't come here to be saved. You came here to remember, to reclaim what was taken from you, to rewrite the story that said demons can't be healed, because you've seen the truth they can. And not only that they want to be, they're tired too. They're just unhealed fragments of us, waiting for someone to say, "I see you. I won't abandon you." And when we do that, when we stop running, stop judging, and start loving even the darkest parts of ourselves, we become what this world has been waiting for. Not saints, not saviors, but whole. And that changes everything. There's something almost impossible to explain about what happens when a dark chosen one finally accepts their path. Not just the healing, but the alchemy. The moment when they stop seeing themselves as broken and start realizing they're becoming something sacred, something new, something the world has never fully understood. This is not about turning darkness into light. That's too simple, too binary. This is about becoming the bridge, the living embodiment of both. The ones who can stand in the fire and not burn. The ones who can hold both agony and awe in the same heart. That is divine power. That is what the world is terrified of and desperate for. When you realize this within yourself, the entire game changes. You stop trying to fit into systems that were never built for your kind of soul. You stop seeking validation from people who fear their own shadow. You stop waiting for permission to be whole. Because you see that your very existence is permission. Your survival is sacred. Your voice is prophecy. And your presence is a kind of medicine that can't be taught, only earned through lifetimes of descent, through nights soaked in grief, through years of questioning your own worth until you finally remember you were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be felt. But here's the part no one talks about when the healing starts to work. It doesn't always feel good. It actually hurts more in the beginning. Because all the numbness starts to melt. All the walls you built to protect yourself begin to crumble. And suddenly you feel everything. Not just your own pain, but the pain of the collective. The grief of your ancestors. The weight of all the unlived lives. And in that moment, you might be tempted to turn back. Is shut down again, to run. But don't. Stay. Feel it. Because that storm inside you is sacred intelligence. That chaos is the soul reordering itself. That's not madness. That's metamorphosis. And metamorphosis is messy. The caterpillar doesn't just grow wings. It dissolves. It becomes unrecognizable before it becomes miraculous. That's what the dark chosen ones go through. That's why it takes so long. Why it feels so lonely. Because while everyone else is chasing success and pretending everything is fine, you're unraveling. You're letting go of who you thought you were. You're dying into your truth. And that's not a breakdown. That's a birthing. And what's being born through you is something the world hasn't seen in centuries. A fully integrated human soul. Not light. Not dark. Just whole. And wholeness is magnetic. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth. You don't need to be understood. You just are. And people feel it. They feel your depth, your presence. Your silence speaks louder than most people's screams. And suddenly, people start coming to you not because you have answers, but because you hold space. Because you've become a mirror that doesn't distort. A reminder that healing doesn't mean becoming someone else, it means returning to who you were before the world told you to hide. That's what the dark chosen ones do. They don't lead with ego, they lead with embodiment. And as you walk this path, something else happens. You begin to see the world differently. You no longer see broken people. You see souls mid-transformation. You see demons not as enemies, but as wounded archetypes waiting to be reintegrated. You don't fear people's darkness, you honor it. You stop judging. You stop trying to fix. You start witnessing. And in that witnessing, people begin to heal not because you gave them a solution, but because you gave them space to exist. That is your superpower. That is your purpose. not to be perfect, not to be pure, but to be present. So I ask you this, what if your healing isn't just for you? What if every demon you've faced, every breakdown you've survived, every scar you carry is part of a much larger mission? What if you're here to be a lighthouse for others still lost in the storm? Not by saving them, but by being seen, by existing as evidence that it's possible to come back from the edge, and to love yourself after the fall, to remember who you are after forgetting for so long. That's the invitation. That's the legacy of the dark chosen ones. And if you've made it this far, you're one of them. You always were. You just forgot. Until now.